Alright, hello everyone, I'm Justin Diamond, and now let's read chapter 25 from my book, Giant Special, Tokyo Love and Game. The title of this chapter is Saigo no Chance. Kobayashi had told Norimoto to be ready at 11. He didn't like to be late for the Go Club. The later you show up, the more good seats get taken. The good players get paired up. You'd spend time not playing and just waiting for someone to play with, but he had failed to explain any of these complexities to Norimoto. What did she know about Go? For that matter, what did Diamundo know? Kobayashi was hoping on not even going inside, but Norimoto invited him in, which meant a long delay. What was the holdup? Grudgingly seated once again at the dining room table, he saw it was Diamundo. The man was making coffee? If not coffee, then something like it. He was in the middle of putting together a metal stovetop maker of some sort, spooning finely ground coffee beans into the device. But something about the way he did it was fascinating, beautiful. He did it with such skill, such fluid and confident motions. Kobayashi knew could only come from having practiced it daily, if not more often. It's the gaijin version of a Japanese tea ceremony, Kobayashi thought. It lasted about as long. Kobayashi found himself consumed with watching Diamundo. His work ethic was nearly identical to a Japanese woman's. He laughed out loud at the comparison and immediately covered his mouth to stop himself. But Diamundo was a gaijin and probably didn't think it was disrespectful anyway. After a frantic mixing of sugar and coffee to an intermediate metal cup, Diamundo finished by setting up 2 espresso saucers and cups on the table. One for him and one for Kobayashi. He poured the coffee evenly into both cups, alternating several times for the final, syrupy liquid at the bottom. "Let's eat," Diamundo said, taking a seat. "Let's eat? Let's drink," Kobayashi corrected, but Diamundo didn't speak Japanese well enough to even realize his mistake. In one sip, Diamundo drained half of his cup. But Kobayashi took a sip and had to keep himself from spitting it back out. It was terribly sweet. Way too sweet. American sweet. Which made sense because an American had made it. "Boy, this is sweet," Kobayashi said, projecting his voice towards the deeper recesses of the apartment so Norimoto could hear it. She came back into the room. "It's okay, you don't have to drink it. As a matter of fact, if you're ready, I think he is." Diamundo's cup was already empty, and the way he was looking at Kobayashi's, he probably could have downed it just as easily. "But what was this coffee?" Kobayashi asked. "I'm not sure exactly," Norimoto said, and asked her husband in English what kind it was. "Kyuba no kohi," which Kobayashi didn't understand until Norimoto repeated it in Japanese. Cuban coffee. "It looks so much like watching a Japanese tea ceremony," Kobayashi said. "A Cuban coffee ceremony. Interesting." The walk over to the Go Club was always nice. It took them over the Chumai River, which ran through Kuki. The club met next to the post office in a public-use municipal building. The group walked inside and traded their shoes for plastic sandals. The heel of Diamundo's feet stuck out from his sandals. His feet were too long. There were several rows of foldable tables set up, all of them with Japanese retirees sitting in pairs, contemplating their next move, and periodically placing their black or white colored stones on the boards in front of them. Kobayashi went inside and began looking for Shiraishi-san. who was the club organizer and could get Diamundo an official name tag. Shiraishi was in the kitchen area, in the middle of making green tea when Kobayashi poked his head in. "Hey, Shiraishi! I've got a new member. Can we get him a name tag?" "Go right ahead. The stuff is all under the scoreboard." By the time Kobayashi had written out Diamundo onto a name tag, the man was already complaining to his wife, apparently about the fit of his sandals. Typical Gaijin. Kobayashi presented the name tag to Diamundo in the proper Japanese manner. He held with both hands at the corners and presented with a slight bow. Diamundo took it casually, pinning it on like he didn't care. Diamundo took in the sight of the Globe Club, as if he'd never seen one before. He probably hadn't. The age discrepancy stood out. Diamundo looked like he was still in his 20s, while every other man in the room was 60 or older. There was an unused board, its 2 bowls of go stones just begging to be used. Diamundo made a move for the unused board, and suddenly Kobayashi realized what he had gotten himself into. He took a look around. He had really been looking forward to having a game with Nakamura-san, but Nakamura-san was already playing with Toya-san. Kobayashi had no options and found himself taking a seat across Diamundo. Norimoto sat holding her daughter like a koala at an empty seat next to them. Diamundo removed the cover from the bowl closest to him. It contained white stones. He offered the bowl to Kobayashi. At least he has some manners, Kobayashi thought. In Go, the black-colored stones always move first, meaning the black player has a slight advantage. It was, therefore, customary to give the senior player the white stones, though technically Kobayashi couldn't be sure how good Diamundo was, not until after the game at least. "Let's start," Kobayashi said, and Diamundo repeated it. "Onegaishimasu." Again, Diamundo displayed his knowledge of Go by correctly holding the stone between his pointer and middle fingers, but he didn't quite slap it onto the board correctly. He placed the stone softly, sliding it home into the 4-3 position in Kobayashi's corner of the board. It was another slight disrespect playing on Kobayashi's corner, but at once more curious was why he had chosen the 4-3 position. Kobayashi took a white stone and placed it onto the board like a pro with a slap and the distinctive clang that only came from kaya wood, the traditional wood their boards were made from. For the next 150 moves or so, Kobayashi was in a good place. He was winning. Not winning as in 3 or 4 point advantage. Not winning in an entire corner or half the board. Winning everywhere he played. On every corner of the board. It was a slaughter. Diamundo would almost certainly be resigning soon. Maybe next game he could offer Diamundo a 3 or 4 stones handicap. That felt right. But then Diamundo said something to his wife. "Saigo no chance," he said. "This is the last chance," she translated. Diamundo put down a stone, and this time it made a clang of a well-placed stone, a shining bright move. He also put it on one of Kobayashi's eye points. It was an ambitious move, a move that threatened to kill, a move that needed responding to, what they called an urgent move. Diamundo followed it up with another similar move in the other corner of the board, then a third on the side. After the third move, Kobayashi saw the essence of the attack. The big dragon he had been building on the board now only had one eye. In Go, you need 2 eyes to live. Suddenly, it was a capturing race in all of its glory. This far out, it was too difficult to count. The winner of the race must have been hidden 16 or 17 moves deep. To make it worse, whenever Kobayashi tried to read out who would win the race, Diamundo played another move in the sequence, giving Kobayashi no time to read it. To hell with it then, Kobayashi thought, and continued to clang down stones, taking turns with Diamundo in a race to the finish. 3 moves before the end, he saw it. Diamundo won by a single move, the smallest possible margin. There was nothing he could do about it. In Go, once a stone was placed, it stayed there unless it was captured. Kobayashi found himself staring at the board. He hadn't made the next to last move in the sequence because then Diamundo would play the last move, which involved picking up the lion's share of Kobayashi's white stones on the board. It would have been an incredible loss of face, because the other men would see Diamundo picking up all those white stones, and they would know not only that Kobayashi had lost, but that he had lost big. Diamundo would have to pick up so many stones, it wasn't even practical. "I resign," said Kobayashi, as softly as possible. "Makemashita." He immediately started picking up the stones. It was devastating. Did that young little shit really just pull a fast one on him, pretending to be a weak player just to turn the game around for his own amusement? Kobayashi had always known Gaijin were disrespectful, but this took the cake. Diamundo was putting his stones away as loudly as possible with such a shit-eating grin, everyone would know the outcome of their game. The post-victory Diamundo started into a long dialogue with his wife. When they were done, Norimoto turned to Kobayashi and filled him in. "He says he learned that Saigo means last in Japanese." Thank you all very much. Catch you next time.